In that dimly lit alleyway, a lone figure keeps pounding until his bones snap, though the hungry ghosts don't seem to notice him at all. So he's got to deal with hell already, which means fighting more battles isn't really making any sense at all to him. He never lets the blood of the dead touch the flesh, because for all the gods he ignores, he's the one who makes them believe in himself. King of their own race, the bravest hero they've ever seen, and above all a saint whose faith is far better than any other man. Suddenly, a magnificent red figure bursts from the shadows, and the man shouts at the ruler of the underworld, "What exactly do you want with such an incredibly powerful being?" The king's master doesn't care if the prince makes him feel that his power is so huge that it shocks anyone else who knows what it means to be truly powerful. The ruler of the underworld pauses smoking his pipe, screams loudly to his crew, and suddenly snaps, "You're going mad. You don't know what happens after you die," because he already knew everything before your very first breath. He isn't a normal kid. He can take whatever anyone wants because he's too strong to stop him, while the monk uses poison to kill everyone, and the king fights so hard that his army runs out of time before he even gets there. It wasn't until that moment before his eyes finally met yours that the world felt completely empty. He was nothing but a worthless sinner. A grim man once said his life was so short he would burn down every safe home in the city just to escape being called a criminal. But yes, he really was a king who took down so many more people than you can even count. He had to stay completely silent because he knew this was his final torment. Yet he couldn't let the ruler in the room take charge of his fate. He only gets out if every life he's been through ends up in perfect peace. He keeps getting ripped apart whenever his heart decides to do that. His heart races as he screams, and for a split second, his mind nearly slips away from the terrifying fate staring at him in front of him. Later, when a figure from the underworld named Noming stepped forward to show off his mighty grip on the throne, the king realized how much power he had lost over time and told him not to do it again for 30 years straight. In fact, that repetition was going to lose its magic very quickly. Noming crumbles into tears as he declares his final days, leaving his successor Tilbo behind with a broken heart and a shadow of what came before. The king felt so proud, thinking his rule was perfect for everyone in the kingdom. But when Ning stepped forward and showed them the real problems, he wasn't surprised by the chaos, only shocked by how deeply it hurt. The king discovers that only those who endured the worst can truly clean themselves. Eventually, they reach the underworld's palace, where Namin asked everyone what they needed to do right now. Just start the judgment of reincarnation. It makes his heart race a little when he hears that Noming has helped so much in his life. Yet he knows this isn't just good news. It's the kind of trust that only comes from someone who truly cares about what happens to you. No matter how many times he jumps back and forth in his soul, he never loses that feeling of having to remember him again. Noming told him it was wonderful and kept his promise. Then the king opened the door, and Noming was completely surprised to see such a wild, lush forest right in front of him. The speakers stared at the river, expecting to hear a roar of life, but instead saw only empty space and ice. The birds are singing instead of sinners screaming, so this entire place feels like a true vacation spot. Naturally, Noming gets furious because the person supposed to lead the group isn't actually here. The old cook was finally out of the house, leaving a strange smell behind. A pot full of hot oil and fire would never have worked for cooking meat. Instead, it's being turned into something delicious instead. The whole place feels like a storm of soaked earth. And suddenly, who's holding the door for him? Ning had to tell the king Yamra he had to go home since this town truly wasn't for him. It seems the service firm has stopped caring about his dreams and refuses to help him find a new life again. Naming growls in anger because he wants to know if Yamra's soul can be reborn now, yet the other man insists his feelings are enough for everyone else to hear. His eyes just kept blurring over and over again while Noming tried to get back the conversation from him. That was the moment Noming woke up from a deep sleep, shouting loudly in his mind, so he could get away. Fortunately, the holy strike that fell down didn't stop. Instead, Yamra was called upon by God directly to intervene. Yama won't let him find Tilbo because Tobo owes him a lot of trouble, and the whole job feels like an afterthought anyway. God said something incredibly hard to hear, and that's why Yarmer hates it so much, because speaking like that means nothing for him anymore. Now he's finally not a servant at all, since he's retired. Maybe he grew so seniorly old he forgot entirely. So if he did want to let go, that would make a lot of sense. Yammer finds himself needing more power to break through a wall built by God and return home safely. You can imagine Yammer teleporting right before it shuts down and slamming its heavy steel door wide open. He won't let go because he dreams of coming back and finding Tilbo, but he's determined to make up for all the trouble that led him there. He crosses the gate and flies up into the sky above the city. He watched as the flames erupted everywhere in the room and realized that nothing was safe anymore until the end of time. As strangers begin sprinting at his side, a new spark ignites beneath the smoke, and he watches it grow brighter with every step forward. The dead are all those wretched souls who should have been buried deep in the underworld, never letting them roam freely over our dusty human world again. It's one of those moments where the kid gets caught in their own trap, and they're about to turn herself around with a bite that could have been too much for an adult like them. Yamra's eyes widen as he sees the boy sprinting toward them, but her heart races before she can stop him from throwing him into a ditch. And he already smelled every single drop of blood all over the place. He asked everyone if they had stopped thinking about what happened to them all and turned his eyes toward him, but none of them said yes. Did they really have such small minds when their world was far larger and dangerous than anything else? It's a sin he has already broken, and God won't forgive it again. When someone finally stops being alive, they get sent to hell by the judges, where those who have made big mistakes keep paying the heavy price of punishment. Those souls who feel remorse after suffering again are reborn in another world. Yamra's heart felt like it was about to crash into a mountain she had never climbed before, yet there was nothing that could stop her from seeing this terrifying truth. The rules of the dead were not just for the living. They were written in stone and fire, and now Yamra wasn't ready to let anyone else step into them. That sounds like a heartbreaking loss, because if the dead person can't actually hear the mourners at all, then there's no way to know what they're feeling anymore. He plans to act like the ancient heroes who killed others before him, bringing every remaining life to their final, tragic end. The old man stared at the tiny body he was holding, and suddenly Yamra felt like she was running out of time for a fight. He keeps slamming the body's face against the earth, turning it into a mountain of ash until the rest of the crowd stops in horror to watch the dust swirl around them like an endless storm. Yamra pauses and wonders if the threat is truly over now. Maybe they're just afraid of how violent the world gets. A blinding flash erupts from the shadows of the dead and bolts straight for Yamra, as she ducks under the impact of her own strength. Noming asked for Yamra's well-being, but she was already diving deep into her next match. He stepped out of the flames, clutching a human head up to his face as he grinned wolfishly at the darkness below. Yamra feels like he has suddenly found a new friend in this room, yet his aura has turned to ash while the smell of life around him has turned into a terrible, choking nightmare. As soon as he spotted his next target, the old toy fell from the air and sprinted off to find a fresh one for himself. Ning stirs a bad breath when he hears Yamra's sharp words, causing him to panic and want to run away immediately. The undead swung his hammer one last time, while Yamra stared with a flicker of wonder at the strange act that had left so many strangers dead. He was trying to pull back a life force from these people just so they could get another chance at rebirth. But when he caught the gun mid-air, Yamra realized instantly that nothing real can ever actually happen again. No one will ever know if the soul who returns from hell knows how to live without feeling guilt. Even though he knew that someone else would take over the throne, it still worked out for everyone because they had nothing to hide from their own choices. Yamra makes his friends believe they are the bad guys and decides to roast everything that comes along with them. And then he smashes the dead man right in the face with a thunderous swing of his hand. So he runs back and forth until the monster gets slammed into a nearby structure before stopping. Yamra walked carefully and cracked a terrible knuckle before planting his heel on the dead man's skull, shouting, "Why did you kill all those people? I just want to be born again." You need that perfect response before the game starts. Yamra kept staring up at him while he tried to escape, but the dead man caught the window glass and lashed out before he could move. Yamra wonders why anyone would want to kill him when his body isn't strong enough to hold back the powerful energy that others have tried to steal, but he can't even think clearly himself. He thought his assessment of her was completely off balance, yet she found himself laughing as she picked up a rock to strike Yamra, whose plan looked absurdly silly at the very moment he was about to charge her. And then those other bodies burst out of the darkness and grabbed his neck, forcing him down with force so loud it made everyone laugh hysterically while he laughed along with them. Suddenly, Yamra slams his hand down onto a man's chest with one mighty blow and shouts, "Why did you stop laughing? Is it no longer funny?" With that final snarl, he unleashes hell's true fury on the victim, who screams as flesh begins to burn while the attack engulfs him. The tall Yamra looks back at the glowing red moon that gleams like his own face as he reaches for the highest point of the skyscraper. The dead man stares into his eyes and whispers, "You want them to follow rules?" They all turned a deep, blood-red hue and started bowing in perfect unison before the true ruler looked down on them. Yamra hasn't even started the punishment yet. He still has to make sure everyone gets what they deserve. He would first tell them about their sins. He will punish these terrible sins, escaping into chaos, hurting people, and committing a crime against humanity with equal severity. It took 700 years to start chaos and only 2,000 to get out of it. But anyone who hurts a human gets thrown back through another 10,000 years of hell. He steps into that distant doorway to find all the bad guys about to get sent away for punishment. The lush green land baffles them because it looks terrible, yet Yammer demands they rush in immediately. It's a joke for him, but he still can't stop staring at that gorgeous picture. He kicked the heavy duster across the floor while shouting, "We're gonna make it dry. No more greasy plants." When the door finally drops shut, a lone figure stumbles back into the shadows and whispers, "I can't believe you said that," before being completely silenced by the machine. Naming guessed at what the dead man might have been thinking, while Yammer confirmed he was likely just working harder right now. Nobody knows if those who left long ago are truly gone or still wandering around, but the news says so. Does chasing those people really make sense at all? Yammer wonders, feeling a mix of confusion and unease as she finds herself wondering where the chase has taken place. No one said the trip was for school. Instead, they were heading toward something that sounds like a place where kids learn together. She walks deep into the dusty hallway, expecting only dead bodies, but instead finds the terrifying truth that she is in the wrong place for such a gruesome job. She knows her job is to make sure everyone finds another way out of the grave. So she tells the group, "We gotta look for something else." A lonely boy hesitates before the girl with broken bones snaps back and asks, "Is Ju not a gravedigger?" Ju isn't feeling particularly strong right now after seeing how many dead people others have dug up. It feels too heavy for someone who has only known a bit of strength before. She thinks the hunter is just a normal person and won't be able to hold on to his robes if he doesn't find the corpse yet, but she promises to keep them safe anyway. Some of the dead are just appearing in the hallway because they're never going away from that useless conversation. She stands over the empty grave and orders the kids to climb up as her hand rests gently on a single, cold body nearby. The teacher nudged her gently before turning away as students burst in again. She immediately lunged at the dead body with surprising force, making it disappear from their view while they hurried toward the exit. She'll be there soon to catch them all. And so, when she thinks she's just a smart kid being spoiled, she gets caught in the arms of a zombie who's trying to eat her up while the rest of the world is left behind. Ju got trapped in the path of the tiger and was eaten instead. Sharpain allowed her to kick the corpse away while asking the girl if she was all right. She shoved her hand away and told him, "Oh my God, I almost died from your touch." She's not a gravedigger. She's just a person who wants to be called one. Ju feels irritated, but the girl looks safe and happy. She sprinted over and slammed the door shut. The heavy bodies keep pounding at the window, making the only student decide they'd definitely smash it open. But Ju only hoped that whoever made the door could know exactly what they were up to, while she slammed a flare into the air with surprising force. She knows everyone else will also be coming over the next few days, so she simply says, "Wait for me." A confused student stares with rage as she realizes she can't find the answer and is about to lose everything else along for the ride. Ju gasps and laughs at those absurd insults before realizing her friend might be hiding somewhere below ground, so she insists on becoming a gravedigger just to make herself useful again. The girl barely escaped death when Ju kept getting the wrong idea that she was hurt. Suddenly, Yammer steps in and looks at the group of spoiled brats, who are talking all over the place like mad cats. The annoying girl demands to know why she's asking him where he came from before telling herself exactly what to say. Eimer tries to whisper a crown into the night, but every word he speaks instantly turns into a deafening thunderclap that shuts down all communication for eternity. She sees him know that God is making a mess of it and wonders if he should just be crazy instead. The shy student slaps Yammer's chest hard while shouting, "You dare act this way towards Celio?" He asks himself if she really knows the person behind her aggressive words. Yamra told us to come here because he was chasing down those who were already gone, and the smell of human blood hangs right in front of him all along. And then he saw the ones at the bottom and felt a strange rush of excitement as he instantly lunged upward to catch them. He stares at the pile of bodies with a weary smirk while they all burst into laughter, thinking that fighting ghosts might be a funny way to get away from home. What a funny situation. Nong immediately thinks Yamra is trying to make Yammer kill their kids, even though Yammer insists these are only the next few generations. They're supposed to stay quiet while their parents make mistakes so badly that they get kicked out of heaven and land in hell. Then he'll just give them what they actually deserve. Surely the student got furious when someone spoke so blunt to a stranger he couldn't trust, asking why that rude remark came from his own kind of guy who wouldn't even know him well. Julia steps right in front of them, shouting that they won't fight, while the student calmly says she needs to sit down and let go of her guard. It wasn't even her fight. Instead, she got slapped by him and saw exactly how badly Yamra had been eaten by a corpse. He's staring at the door and wondering how long it will take for someone to come back with help. He felt a strange sense of familiarity coming over her, which was cut short when the nervous student shouted, Oh no, they're going to scare us. Imagine your dad slipped into the dark realm, where even kings have to weep and plead for mercy with every breath. As soon as he heard Yamra was the ruler of hell, he laughed so hard his stomach hurt. He tried to hold it back, but couldn't. It was so funny that he lost his grip and laughed all over again. He asked the professor if that bastard isn't actually trying to be funny. He laughs with all his heart and decides to laugh until he stops trying to be smart about it. You won't worry anymore. I'm sure he's going to crush that villain, so Dad will just take over the whole family situation like a pro. Nami tries hard to tell him to stop, but the man won't pay any attention at all. Then that sudden firestorm hits the classroom, and everyone's first burns in a rush as the attack finally stops. Oh no! The Jade Emperor tried to hold back his own chaos. Yet nothing stopped him as things exploded into a mess that had no end at all. Ju rushes forward right before Yamra gets hit and immediately tells him to duck rather than stay put. She's suddenly coughing up a lot of blood while still refusing to let anyone touch her, showing that she won't even stop protecting him until he keeps his distance. Now that the student is done learning, he looks exactly like a monster. That's why his friends say, if you don't figure out where you belong, he will show you what it is. When Yammer encounters a sinner, his pupils stretch wide as he transforms into the terrifying ruler of the Dark Realm. The kid shouted, "You can't hold my hands. I'm going to hurt you." It's like a whisper of words from a friend who knows nothing about how to fix things. And suddenly, it scares Ju to the point where she laughs at him. It took him a long time to hold back the urge to squeeze his hand all the way through until it turned a deep, shocking purple, after which he finally let go, giving the student a sudden wave of that same adrenaline-driven confidence. He says nothing and immediately kills anyone who speaks against him. He tells his father every detail of their story before ripping them apart, turning his own life into a weapon for the rest of the family. He can't even touch anyone because they're all too dirty for human touch. Yammer gasped as the brat continued shouting about threats without a single reason, leaving him completely stunned. At this point, Yammer shouldn't be speaking at all because he isn't really any longer a living person. It turns out both people only care about hurting others because that was their first rule. He grabs a chunk of wood as he speaks and then cleans it before announcing his new title. Does anything spark in your mind if you look closely at that picture? He didn't get the point of what he was saying, yet his friend pointed out it looked exactly like Harry Potter's wand. Yammer quickly realizes he can't hide behind a wall any longer, so he hits the class in a nasty face right away. He was struck by the impact of his own words as he spoke to Harry Potter. Jumper keeps shoving him hard while his classmates cry out in agony. Naming was instantly horrified when his master did something so violent and terrifying, leaving everyone else staring in shock just as it happened. It seems Eimer acts like a maniac because the only thing that helps him doing this isn't. Once he finishes his lesson, seeing the student's backside turn into a tomato, he wonders just how good that penalty made him feel. You should probably think about reflecting on what to do next before Harry Potter even returns to save you. The youngest spoiled girl began screaming as the adults tried to climb up a ladder and piled them all higher than anyone else could handle. The girl reaches for the backpack she's holding, only to find herself standing right where Ju has been waiting all day. Every kid has to walk out the door so they can hide away. The girl refused to go down, stubbornly shouting that the many dead were right there in front of her. Ju tells everyone that the bodies have finally risen to meet him, so he and his friends will leave quickly before they get too late. That moment marked a shift as both groups began their tasks. But Ju insisted that Yamra also join them for her promise to manage everything right there. She tells him she never met anyone better than herself, and he stares at the blank wall of silence with a quiet surprise. She kept trying to help strangers, but she was completely ignored and hurt by everyone around her. Even those ruthless creatures won't get a chance to appreciate true mercy, so she takes everything from their lives to save them all. He slapped Ju Carrot across the face and shouted at his son, "Look, that guy is talking tons of crazy stuff." It makes more sense for him to pause his talk and lower his eyes because staying too long is already causing a lot of danger. Yamra watched with a wide-eyed wonder as the sun set over the valley and saw the sky turn purple before the clouds gathered above her head. She couldn't help but feel that something had changed all day long. Because she's here now, that woman won't die in vain. The Jade Emperor didn't let him finish his move. Instead, he shut him down and told him not to try interfering at all. So, what better reason for a traveler like him than to wander off toward the town of Telbo? Yammer looks around to figure out what to tell her, while the Jade Emperor says he doesn't matter if she dies no matter it is. He couldn't let them in because they were screaming about being eaten. The man who didn't know he'd be alone won't live to tell the tale about this foolish woman. As Yamra lets off a sigh of satisfaction, she decides to let Noming take care of them all, and he agrees immediately. Just then, one of the dead lunge at Yama, but June jumps in first to shield him, even as she gets bitten over and over again. She looks absolutely baffled because she can't figure out why the man is acting so weird and bewildered in his own way right now. Ju is laughing and asking herself if she even has the guts to ask him why someone needs protection when everyone else does too. Yammer truly didn't anticipate this response because he was so deeply moved by it. But the Jade Emperor won't stop chasing after Tobo no matter what direction he looks for. The dead are rushing through the streets while innocent people watch from safety as they die. Even though the odds are stacked against him, he refuses to let his friend go and tries once more to stop them. Yammer realized that every word was a promise keeping up with God's perfect rules for the best possible time and place. He won't let those innocent ones suffer for their own sins, so he'll never rest until everyone is saved. A powerful man strikes down every last sin in his life, while wiping away everyone who ever died to tell the woman she finally gets what she deserves. The Jade Emperor immediately tried to stop him, yet Yammer refused to listen again and told Ju that his job pay would finally become massive with full protection. She can travel around the world as much as she pleases, but after her big break arrives, she will instantly turn into an amazing, rich girl who loves to spend more time with powerful men in every single life she starts. He was essentially telling her to go into God's place and work there instead of doing it herself. Ju wakes up and suddenly mutters, "Oh wow, that would be an amazing job." Yammer gasps as she lands on the floor, wondering why she still feels so strong when everyone else has collapsed. Ju looked down at her bloody hand and realized that it was too late to save herself. Maybe they'll make up for lost time in another world. Yammer refuses to let her die, so she lets her hair fall away and is pulled back through the dark forces until they lead her straight into a quiet, white realm. She steps forward, looking like a statue that has never been touched, and he smiles warmly at her arrival, knowing this is his very first personal underworld where she can finally see herself without fear. Ju stared at the empty room and whispered, "I can't believe I'm actually in hell." After walking around, it suddenly felt less like a magic trick and more like the real thing. Her wounds are already healing, so she saw that moment as a great chance to do something important. She wants to get her official job title, so she asks Yamra for his last name, even though he hasn't learned it yet. Yamra said that Yamra is nothing more than a king in the deep underworld, even if he might be calling himself Yamra. Naturally, Ju feels stunned as he steps up to the throne of the underworld. It's a rare moment where anyone gets pulled there. But Yamra pulled back from a deep sleep to call his name, then wrapped his bandage tight around her neck, just as he began to talk about becoming gods himself. She won't ever get old or forget who loves her, so she'll stay forever with them. Oh, Ju simply loves that hairband because it looks so pretty. She even asks, "What exactly is this?" in a way that makes everyone wonder if she knows who it is. Yamra hesitated as his heart swelled with hope, wondering if someone was waiting for him while the sky began to glow red. But then she realized that moving forward would be the only way out. Yamra tells Ju that the thing in her hand could be the biggest threat of all. If she never stays together in the whole time, the place wouldn't even hold her anymore. Ju asks to know if the separation is possible if she lacks that item, but Yamra replies quickly that yes, they'd almost certainly sever her head just in time. Finally, she wakes up again in reality, standing right next to a colleague named Miho who has been struggling to open his eyes for hours. She was completely stunned by the silence in the dark room as she finally opened her eyes to see the man staring back with a strange, bewildered look. Miho talks through the door while Ju thinks about whether that moment was a dream or a reality. She wonders where she went, but Miho says the only way is through her emergency signal right now, so they don't lose anyone else. Ju asks Miho what's wrong with the students she was trying to protect, and he tells them they're actually fine. They were just hiding in class, but there's something strange happening. Some of them have a sticky substance on their skin that looks like a big thing licked them. Miho was genuinely surprised when he heard that she found the news odd, and she even admitted to his surprise at the weirdness. As he keeps talking, Ju turns her head and wonders if Yamra's chance with fate has finally vanished. It turns out that feeling like a real dream never happens. Instead, when she thinks about what to do next, someone named Park just walks in from the door asking if she looks good. Julia whispers, "I am fine," while praising her friend for the worry. Yet Park insists she stop talking about it because she can't handle how much she's done with her own sense of self-worth. She was worried about being late for tomorrow's work, so she decided she'd do her best even if things were going wrong around here. As always, Ju lowered her head to accept the silence. Miho steps forward and gently strokes her shoulder while whispering, "Don't listen to what Park says," keeping a cool voice in his hand. She really felt extremely worried, so she sprinted right into the air when she heard Ju could be in trouble. It feels like Ju says he worked hard just to feel good, while Miho thinks that's not really true. As the taxi driver took Ju away to his seat, Miho leaned back at her chair, wishing her a good night's rest as best he could. Ju sat in the car, watching over her childhood friends as hope flickered behind her eyes. She wondered if fate might take them all away, just like something Yammer had warned about. While she stared at a mystery, Noming jumped out beside her and shouted, "Now you're really in touch with the dark." The scream tore through the car like a hurricane, sending the vehicle flying back as the driver scrambled for her after seeing the mess on the dashboard. She hides behind the Jew to pretend she's seen something dangerous, but while talking about her weird ball, she quietly whispers to herself, "Who is this?" Ning steps forward like an old friend, and then Ju asks everyone, "Can anyone else see him?" Naming says normal folks can't do anything right, yet when someone like Ju tries to sound like an old man to him, the awkwardness becomes ridiculous. She needed to be casual because she was already settled on what happened, so she asked Yamra where the girl was, and Ning told her the student had been there all along. However, if he actually went out himself, things may have already been lost for those scum. Ju recalls how Yammer was yelling about that student and suddenly slammed his brakes. But then she saw the driver speeding through the parking lot and threatened him with a fine for doing it again. Yamra pauses inside that huge room and wonders if there's even a fraction of a second he'll be able to finish pulling down the whole thing before falling through the ceiling himself. It turns out being a sinner isn't like escaping in an easy boat, but at least the danger isn't as total as everyone thinks. He watched a stranger walk by the open front door, realizing his own thoughts were surprisingly strange today. Yamra pushed hard against the glass as he walked toward it, sending the object flying back into his face and breaking before he could even stop running. The rest of the crowd went wild because nobody had dared touch the finest piece of glass in the nation without a second thought. Yamra knows exactly why the group is scared, yet his only wish is that they give up the bad guys. Naturally, as soon as anyone sees him, they start fleeing in panic. There's a strange woman who doesn't care about her husband's coming home at all. She looks genuinely happy when she sees him have so much energy. Yes, that mysterious man is actually a true king of the underworld. Yamra noticed the boy with a single look before she could stop herself from watching him. Her eyes don't last very long. He teleported right there without a sound, so she couldn't see him staring with that confused look. She suddenly realized that a man named King is locked inside her own mind, staring at something far too dangerous to see anymore. She asks, "Is there any trouble?" while Yammer points sharply, whispering, "Who are you actually?" The woman giggled and whispered, saying her attitude never got worse. She won't even be able to see who he was before because he lost his memory of his own face, so she has to start introducing her again from scratch. When Baiku decided that life was too much of a burden to live, she went into the dark realm where shadows hide her own heart. A sudden burst of noise cuts the air open when she finally replies to him, "I did bring that." Even though their leader says it's not a good idea, the boy ignores the warning and immediately orders everyone else to follow the rules like a proper kid. Yamra is so thrilled that he's already ready to shoot off, but Baiko blocks his path and insists on hearing what he needs first before they go crazy. It's actually not so important right now. She said something was so important that even if she didn't get it, the message still mattered. Maybe the judges and cops shut those guilty people down just for fun. Even if the rich and powerful think their problems matter little, this man won't let them slip past him. He ruled the dark realm where every crime earned him an eternal punishment. Yama knows many people are hurt by that boy, so she promises to ensure the penalty matches exactly what he did. It was a big surprise for Baiku when he heard what they were saying, so he let them go right away. Yammer zoomed forward and slammed into the terrified student who was frozen by his own death at that very rooftop. Yammer reminded himself of a warning, but now he understands why it was pointless. The boy hadn't even thought about what he did. Once more, he'll get hammered by Perry. Baiku was puzzled by what he thought Baiku heard, yet the boy dropped down to his knees in a desperate plea to stop it happening. The security team had to fight not only for their own safety, but also for those guarding the main gate, which turned out to be a few of the most loyal men on watch. Baiku raised her hand loudly, so the whole group could see he was still trying to hold on before they all slipped away into the darkness. She doesn't look like a threat. Instead, her presence draws the guard away instantly while Yammer gasps to see just how powerful this lady truly is in that room. Oh dear, she's definitely a great leader, but do we know exactly who she is? Yammer's eye lights up when she sees Yon Master running away, making her heart start pounding because he must have forgotten how to stop. A guard of the young master interrupts the scene and insists, "I'm the son of President Kong." Yammer wonders what this means for her. Then a sharp figure explains, that boy is the son of the president of the Kong Sun Group, the biggest company in Korea, and he holds more power than anyone else. Yammer asks again why it matters, realizing she doesn't get it, and the bodyguard swings at him while he can't even make his head move. Yammer barely moves as Yammer desperately tries to smash Yammer, and yet he's struggling to get his strength back on the table. Yammer wonders whether he truly hopes this boy will see his father differently just for being his father-in-law. The bodyguard stares at the stranger and asks, "Are you really that stupid?" As the man replies with a terrifying grin about the beast he just provoked. Idama said that money isn't power, so he needed to stop talking nonsense and come back to work. Maybe a lot of men think committing crimes is okay simply because they have some kind of influence over people. Oh no, this is a dangerous situation where an older man finds himself reduced to the ground because someone claims they're physically or mentally unable to hold it all together. And yet, sadly for him, he never fully grasps how this terrifying world works. A gruff guard warns a man that the world won't let him be his master because he already knows how to command it. He grabs his clothes and turns into an unstoppable steel beast before anyone can stop him from striking Yammer with one massive, powerful blow. He could blast the world into his chest, hurling Yammer off course like a falling stone. Even though the guard was sure he'd won, he kept running around and shaking hands with people who weren't even in his way because that's how he felt about being a guy without an ego. But that's exactly the moment Baika gets mad because, along with being totally worthless and being so stupid himself, he knows his mistake is serious. You need to turn your attention inward. After all, he's staring right at you now. Suddenly, Yammer flies right past him, shouting, "I've just become a sinner." The guard still had enough time to dodge the punch coming at his face, realizing he was stronger than he had ever been before. He's still up there, even though his guard guy keeps telling him he won't let him go back down. Yammer is swinging his club so hard that Yammer slips through the air, wondering what's happening behind him while trying to protect her own head. Humans really do come up with some truly crazy ideas all the time. Yammer snatched his t-shirt off him and spun around to strike a furious flying kick that slammed directly onto the man's stiff, unsmiling face. Finally, he stepped over the line of judgment and knew today would be his second hit. Though Yammer doesn't tell you to do it, because he's likely hurting his neck, the bodyguard knows for sure. Nobody really matches him anywhere. Strength and speed are just the basics. This guy is no real competitor. Who is this man? There is one fact that is absolutely undeniable. Nothing can be human. The hard kick sent a shockwave through the air that knocked the guard's head straight down toward the dirt, as if you're trying to fly away from the impact. The air in the room felt thick with tension, and Baiku had no idea how to handle the situation. He expected Yammer to show him more than anything else. Yet he sensed a shift underneath her expression that made him feel strangely vulnerable compared to what she was showing him. Suddenly, he called out her name and demanded why people were shrouds for the dead so that mortal souls can't touch them. Baiku steps aside and whispers that his help isn't just about protecting anyone else. He simply protects the whole world from all its worries. For over 20 years, humanity has found itself facing a terrifying reality. For the first time ever, people truly struggle to protect their own lives from death. Yammer wonders why they can't fight without shrouds, and Baiku gently clarifies that the living are actually much stronger than the dead. When they crossed the river steps, they were bitten by monsters and forced to run for hundreds of years just to survive. Once upon a time, some people lived on the edge of the earth with heavy burdens that no human dared to lift. The greater their crimes in life and how long they served them out, the higher they rose above humanity, becoming even more powerful than everyone else around them. But those who died wanted to change things and gave their clothed bodies back to people. Most people end up turning into heavy-duty gravediggers who hunt down their fallen friends. But some brave souls might instead turn into ruthless secretaries who steal from the rich to live in luxury alone. Yammer stares at the strange mask and asks his friend why it's happening when all they really need is to be alive. Yammer feels completely lost and can't make sense of everything she's told, so she needs to figure out exactly where her path ends now. Baiku was so happy to find out who he met at the hospital. Yammer looks at Noming with a puzzled face and asks, "Why do you think we know each other so well?" While Noming replies, "Well, about 300 years ago." Naming and Bu are both stunned because they don't seem to have met again in years. Yet Naming points out that she really hasn't gone anywhere without permission lately. Even now, Yammer still doesn't know who she actually is and thinks she's just an ordinary person. Seeing that the fool didn't understand, Baiku asked, "Who's that woman?" Ju steps forward in excitement as Baiku watches with wide eyes, completely stunned that the little girl isn't just another doll or a ghost, but actually a real, living person who works at the gravesite right here. Nam says this is really long, so she's stuck right along with you and everyone else who needs to figure out what to do next. Yammer tells Baiku that she has no pity because she was hired by God, yet Baiku still needs to figure out who she really is before anyone else thinks she's a ghost for him. So Baiku tells us this. She's the 12-year-old sign, the special kind called Axis, who has always been helping Tula. Bikua's eyes light up as they step into the other room, where Yammer laughs nervously because she barely knows how the nightmare finally got this far along. Yammer asks her if she remembers where Tilbo went, but she doesn't know, causing Yammer to explode in anger because he had finally spotted the bastard himself. Even though Baiku feels sorry that he didn't help Yammer, Yammer thinks that matters aren't big enough to worry him since it's mostly about Tilbo anyway. Still, he keeps wondering where everything got this far. Tilbo stared at a blank wall, realizing that his mind was spinning with a chaotic mix of possibilities, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something far more dangerous might be plotting this out in advance. And Baiku feels like his world is falling apart because he doesn't know enough about the situation, so he decides to spend all his energy trying to make sure that Little Note will finally get it right. She looked worried because she thought she was great at work, so she asked if she wanted to go into the divine place. Instead of accepting it, she turned down the offer even though she knew it would be a bad idea. Buku suddenly jumped up and asked, "What happened to Jill? She didn't show up in ages." Eimer says she's got a very easy job to do. Her first one at all. Right now, she's running through the city with her magic wand, making everyone else wonder exactly what's happening. Yamra handed her a glowing wand and told her she had to stop worrying about beating that boy. He told her, "You are actually the only person who could possibly be saved by just letting you handle this thing for me." She smiled at Yammer as the call from Baiku pressed in on her head, so she rushed out of the room to explain everything. "You've got a simple job. Don't look back while she yells with her magic wand in hand. She's cracking down hard today, screaming, 'Burn the sinner,' to push the students over the edge so they run just as fast." She feels incredibly awkward when she hears that comment, and the embarrassment creeps up on her in a way that makes her feel like she's about to lose her voice completely. She found herself laughing at the irony of a woman who couldn't help but apologize whenever she bumped into someone. When Park turned back, it revealed that he had scolded her directly because she hadn't rested yet at the table. Oh no! She tried so hard to make amends, but then Park snapped out of it and told them to handle the mess themselves. Right now, she's in trouble and Ju wants to fix it, but something sinister is walking right next to her like a sneaky thief. The park owner decides his neighbor needs help and is willing to pay for whatever it takes to fix their problem. Ju is screaming that killing the man alive now is the only way to win, but Park insists he'll run away immediately so he can keep using his clever tricks against him while it's all just chaos. They will only follow him and wait out every chance to get into an unexpected surprise attack. Ju stares blindly around and says, "Why are you staring so long?" It looks like Park is just on patrol. Ju laughs because she knows it might mean this job is hard, but the worst part comes with every new area she visits after a patrol stop. There's always that massive dead one haunting the place. Maybe he isn't truly his boss, yet something very specific is involved in the job itself. Park watched him carefully and wondered if his real job was simply taking away all the blocks on the path. The dead man was chasing the student, but he couldn't find anyone else, so Park ran frantically to catch up and grab him. She was actually faster than everyone else, but somehow that speed turned into a trap and she hit hard enough to knock the undead unconscious right in front of them. Ju catches the boy right as he gets hit by a piece of debris, preventing him from turning into a pool of blood. The park's cheerfully surprised friend runs over with a fistful of a dangerous weapon to tackle the scary enemy. The man refused to let anyone get away from him again. No matter how bad the messes got, he would always make sure everyone paid their debts back. Her cloak of old wisdom swings wide as she fires the heavy hammer to crush the dying figure into dust before he can blink. Then she ordered Ju to rush to safety and summon help right away. He agreed, but insisted that Park stay strong, no matter what the price. The park clerk told her she had to get back home quickly, because her belief that a fight was necessary wasn't working out for her. Yet when she saw the injured guy finally waking up after being hit, she went wild with shock. She can't afford to get scared, so she has to work hard to avoid being hurt by whatever's attacking her. He tried to trade a strike away from him so he could quietly flee, but the undead didn't care and just stood there waiting for her weapon. He swings his weight free and knocked her down, even when she keeps trying to strike back with her heavy hammer. So even though the storm kept coming, it didn't really hit anything big. The park knows better than to wait. If she touches the ground now, she'll lose her strength entirely and end up in his hands. Suddenly, the dead man steps forward to claim his own mask, turning into a phantom bat that slams hard onto Park's chest as she is dragged deeper into the dark. He thought the game was over and went to get ready for his final move, but suddenly someone slammed into him hard. Ju, who had just arrived from the shadows to save him. The park manager asks if reinforcements are coming up soon, and the star girl confirms she reached out to a person so that someone else can join her there in time. Park's stubbornness is baffling because a dead man like him really needs 2 level 1 gravediggers, not just the basics, so why isn't an ordinary corpse? And yet, when Ju decided to make her first real move by calling just one person, she turned out to be the most complete idiot in the room. Ju leaps over a fallen enemy with her bare arms to hold off their blow and cheerfully tell them she'll survive this round, even though it means losing her own life for the better. The park's guard, Park, instantly spotted an aggressive man shouting nonsensical gibberish while simultaneously recognizing his superior fighting skills against a rival guard who was far more dangerous to attack. Oh wow, that red thing must be a very good kind of mantle. Even though the undead are bleeding from a wound, they feel satisfied after surviving those fierce blows. If they could just pull back into a low, protective crouch and start circling Ju again. A sudden warning comes from a man who seems to be in trouble for using his power. He was suddenly gone so that someone else could find him in the dark. She tried so hard to find the invisible dead one, only finding out very quickly when he hit her from behind, leaving her unable to stop blocking. The police chief noticed that the dead man was running away like a ghost after only one round of gunfire, making it impossible for anyone to find him again until he finally appeared on the scene. When she hears the wind shift, she instantly knows the dead man is right there beside her, so she strikes him with perfect precision before he even moves away. The shadows of the night cling tighter as Jewel feels suddenly lost again, unable to locate himself in his own confusion. She jumps up, and that loud ringing bell on his head makes her dizzy before she can even move. She took a massive hit and barely escaped a blow that hurt every muscle in her body, while Park just happened to take another step forward before she could even realize what was happening. Ju wonders if Park knows where he stands, but Park only says his position is a secret held by his great book, a mystery that keeps the scholars at bay. Anything she hits at first could never run away from that deadly watchful eye. Park decides she'll lead Ju into the fight, because Ju just has to let her be his trusted friend. Ju nods instantly and lets out a long breath before closing her eyes completely to see exactly how much she trusted herself in that moment. She felt shocked when Park suddenly began screaming about being too stupid for anyone to watch, and the question arises, in a heated argument, will it be anyone who wants her to die? Judy hurriedly apologized to the room as Park noticed that she had watched way too many movies. It's a fierce battle right here, where people are being warned not to move without checking first. The hero instantly shouts the order for her next attack, and every time she manages to hit a wounded enemy with just enough force, she gets another blow. The story keeps going until the fight feels like a one-sided victory where a mysterious disciple named John Mucci even shares his surprise that such terrifying strength is now so prevalent in everyone's life. So you might as well jump in and stop the bad guy right there. It wouldn't look like an actual embarrassment to see him gone, and honestly, your friend is more than willing to walk away from that conversation on his own. The man who was running a speedway started descending toward the crowd, and then asked them to stop beating his friend up. Ju stares hard at Park right away, demanding an explanation, while Park steps in front of him to stay behind because that was just the name he gave them before. He was slightly baffled when she asked if he'd be a big shot at all while looking so thin. Yet he found himself genuinely grateful that they knew exactly who he is. Now he faces the question, could he retrieve his friend back? There are very few people capable of stealth, and it's a rare ability. So, essentially, he's asking for a favor, which sounds strange enough to him. He had just stepped back from his own mistake when the storm hit hard, and suddenly someone threw a heavy rock right in front of him. It said that when Lucier gets into battle, his words become so powerful that they make the corpses understand him. Consequently, those who die are able to speak and move with such intelligence because they killed so many others first. They'll probably be shocked she already knew he wouldn't let her touch him, even though she was so clumsy. Ju screams as Uchi throws Park onto the dirt. Then he stumbles back, terrified that the girl's spirit remains alive, even though she was just about to hit her own hand with such a forceful blow. It's a brave girl who knows someone she loves hates them completely. A huge tornado explodes near him as he tries to summon the devil's power, trying to slash Ju with it every time. Lichxi starts chuckling as he questions, you think you can really attack now? So, why does she bother caring? Because you've already got everything you ever needed in front of you. Humans are so totally pathetic that they'd rather run away than listen to you tell them everything. You've heard right. Being a wild animal who truly doesn't care about anyone else's life? It sounds like something you want to do instead, isn't it? When she finishes his attack, she knew exactly why the girl would run away from all those wounds. He finds herself staring at the woman and feels a sudden chill. He doesn't want to run because she won't let go now, yet he's forced to hold on to her just so she can stay. He asks why she'd protect that thing so early on, and Ju's silence only makes the question even more frustrating. Even in our busy world, nobody cares about money and power because your heart is the real treasure that matters most. Altruism doesn't do anything at all. It only makes you feel like a good person who loves others. Ju would tell him the truth. She doesn't need a reason to save anyone, but she definitely does have a very serious sin. Uxie gasped for air when she realized the final part of her sentence had already vanished, leaving only that terrifying, desperate need to hold on before falling apart completely. After that, the hero says his sins are too big to hide from them, so they stare blankly at him instead. He doesn't think he can avoid the problem. Instead, his very fear of being caught makes him decide to stay there. He tightens his grip on the talisman as if to kill him, but suddenly he notices that Yam has arrived at Ju's side with a worried look in her eyes. You said the girl is okay, but those two are already struggling. One of them's breath is catching up in the air while their cloak starts to look gray from fading away. Yamra tapped lightly, and his hand shot out to wrap both of them in a warm embrace like a gentle hug around his heart. Ju knows Ju won't be worried if he's right here with her. The boy, Ju, feels deeply thankful for a wonderful workmate named Yamra. Yet his own pride crumbles as the night shifts into chaos when a man behind him screams wildly at full force. Yamra noticed that instead of speaking rudely, he should choose pleasant words. So Noming reminded him to forget everything else and focus on fixing Eimer's problem by pushing a millstone for 500 years, since that was just a punishment for making Yamra sound like an idiot. The screen watched silently while that guy looked promising before suddenly wondering if everything mattered to him. Yamra was trying to explain to Yamra how much money would make the joke worth, only to get shoved back into the room as soon as she finished talking. Muchi finally felt he had been too generous for so long that Yammer hadn't just forgiven him. Now he's wondering if the forgiveness was enough to stop him from saying what he really needed. So Yammer says that Yuchi isn't actually important to him right now, and that's why the attack was happening instead of just listening to him. He had plenty of time right now, because taking care of those hurt people was always the biggest priority in life. Two heroes shoot lightning simultaneously as a raging storm of neon colors sweeps through the sky. Naturally, Yammer swings so hard that Uchi's cloak rips right off his head in one solid punch. As Uchi ducks and lets go of a single blow, Yammer launches a devastating second charge that rips through Bushy's defenses before he can react to the onslaught. Uchi thinks he caught Yammer in a spell that freezes him, but then the magic kicks in and tears the ice away before it can hurt anyone else. Uchi laughed and pointed at Yammer, who looked exactly like an abandoned shopping cart. Huge and loud, yet completely empty for all the stuff he was trying to hide away. It's like he pulled out his most dangerous sword from the waistband of his pants and swung it hard. He started laughing because nobody had ever gone away without being caught by something he could not escape. So Yammer's cloak was also perfectly sealed just like that. But then a sudden wind blows away his whole power, leaving him completely powerless in the end. Yammer laughs with a smile as he thinks the lesson learned yesterday doesn't really matter anymore. He thinks his cloak is a ghost, but the dark fire in his heart is the real hellfire rising from the deepest pits of the underworld. That flickering ember burns away every single sin in the world before it can even reach him. But because this flame burns so darkly on his own, Yammer's magic just gets bigger and more dangerous with each passing day. Yammer stepped forward to help Butchie shake off his disbelief, offering him a warm piece of wisdom that would change everything for him. Don't let your foot get crushed by the dirt. When a mighty attack launches straight into his face, Muchi refuses to surrender and instantly reactivates the seals around the 8 doors, while simultaneously hurling a second blade at the coming blow. No matter how hard he tries, the attacks keep coming because his wind has nothing to offer. A man is struggling to stop the burning flames of hell by trying to use a gentle breeze as a shield against the fire. Yamra doesn't wait to see the fight end. She's already locked into his body, ready to slam any of his moves down just like that. He keeps throwing hellfire endlessly, yet Muchi is burning out at the sight of it. With no energy remaining, the flames engulf him completely. Muchi felt like he was about to burn away with the sun's fire and shatter completely beneath him. Yamra asks himself if the fire is truly gone, even though Noming insists no one else can touch him anymore, since he handed over his sword and cloak to Tilbo. Noming suggests that if he throws this man into hell and leaves, the people in hell and the rest of the human world will have their own very different ways of thinking about how much longer time can be measured. Yamra lost track of how much the other girl's laugh surprised her when she finally remembered they were friends. He gently shifted the humans into a secure hiding spot so they could finally rest without fear. He happily picked up the magical staff from that lady who had made him so happy. Yammer was asked by Noming why he couldn't just retire and let his master decide for him, because the very good subordinate said he's really a great fit now that he knows how to handle a completely scatterbrained master. While they were chatting, Muchi tried to flee because he was running out of time with a monster so distracted from his job that it couldn't stop him. The man was a nightmare if left alone. Anyone near him has no choice but to stay away from him, so the only way to keep everyone safe is to make sure he isn't around at all times. It turns out Yammer immediately noticed him running away and lowered himself, wondering exactly what he was heading to. Yuchi found himself forced to give up every piece of his pride immediately as a mistake. In his heart, he's begging for mercy and hoping Yammer falls in love with him. But instead of speaking straight up, Yammer pulls out a memory from years ago instead. She fell from heaven on a gray Tuesday and landed in the dark after she lost her baby. A terrifying king of hell summoned his prisoner to ask where he went, for he knew the only way out was through this dying boy who refused to return home. The king turned to see the truth. It wasn't someone else, but himself. After starting the conflict and making things worse for everyone, he was truly the only culprit. Unfortunately for her, the king of the underworld already knew everything. It wasn't him who commanded the army. Instead, he was the one who allowed his troops to starve because they were not loyal. Because of what she did, she ended up being the real sin in this place. It turned out that even when he faced everything with sinners in his heart, their sins never changed. They often tell lies when things go wrong, so people don't know what's really going on with them. He made hell because he knew that his irritation was the worst thing anyone could do to him. His eyes widen as the words echo, and something deep inside him shudders before the fear fades away completely. The king sits alone in his throne of shadow, refusing to acknowledge even a single mortal's existence or an insult from anyone else. Because for him, power does not mean submission when you are truly the ruler. The hero quickly summons a powerful dragon of pure wind and swings it wildly toward the beast at their feet in a desperate battle. But Yamra has already done the heavy lifting of getting him in trouble. The sinner barely knows if he's sorry for his mistakes, because remorse isn't something anyone ever remembers. So, when the king of the underworld rises to rule, Yamra decides to cut him off forever and never let him see anyone again. As he taps his staff with focused intent, he starts by pulling a delicate bonsai from the air. He struck the person with a single swift blow that split them in two instantly. As Nam watched the ancient technique fade away from his own mind and body, he wondered how long it had been since he'd finally seen it. Yammer's magic staff shattered because his immense power broke into a mere ordinary stick that he casually picked up from the ground. No matter how much he dodges, the game is still fighting him because Nam isn't ready to take a loss yet. His own power did everything he could do all by himself. Yammer said that after finishing all the tasks, the team needed to unwind at some quiet place because they had spent the whole day staring at screens. That was exactly why they needed a break first. Naturally, she found her favorite spot, the one Jew actually wanted to visit, and asked if he had come here just for some quiet relaxation. You know she needs to rest because, even when you're your boss, there's nothing to worry about in the end. Ju leans back in the booth and sips her drink while he smiles warmly at the rest, saying he'd make sure nothing inconvenient happens to either of them. It wasn't just her house. It was the one place that made her feel truly alone and scared to go home again. Yamra actuated her heart to say that exact moment when he already knew she was smart. She could have easily turned into a real cat after that, but the job loss was already out of her control. So instead of leaving the house alone, she tells him to go stay with Beku because she must live somewhere fancy like a big mansion. Judy wonders why this humble friend insists on sitting in a home for his subordinate when a stranger's place might bring shame. She even decides to check if he really wants to move into that same space herself instead. She laughed so hard at his joke that she misheard someone's breath and compared the awkward moment to a ridiculous act of giggling. She's finally done with the project, so she says she needs to take a break and get out of it to protect her own space. She'll arrange a private room near the studio for him to use instead. Yamra admitted he didn't understand yet, but because of past experiences like this, he won't fight for her options or risk upsetting her. It would keep the conflict away from him entirely. He pauses mid-leave and stares around to see if anyone else has crossed his path, wondering if he should just go on with the story. Chuma knew exactly how he handled those bad guys and gently told them not to even consider it. He wonders why she's acting like a bad, sinning woman. Eimer promised Eimer's methods were truly very bad, yet she wouldn't even listen because she didn't believe in anything. He firmly tells himself his heart beats with such softness that he could actually let go of being a strict father. She tries to show him the proof by pointing out that there is an elderly woman sitting nearby who has serious health issues. One sunny morning, a girl ran over the curb, throwing away some trash when she wasn't supposed to be there. So what would that bad guy think of her? Yammer insists on being plunged into a boiling pit of pitch so that Ju screams in pain, which ignites a fierce struggle as they cannot see each other's intentions. They started fighting so bad, they acted more like cats than dogs. Yet Noming watched quietly from a distance, as if she were the beautiful owner watching her own pet. He saw Ju slump, and immediately handed her his own glass of water he hadn't finished yet. It was a little too bright for the day. Yamra asked her friend if the new man was ever here, but she keeps wondering why they're fighting again, so Naming fills in the blanks to keep her guessing. The children dug deep into the dirt to pull up the old water cistern, then looked around at their new home and said, "He thinks we should have stayed in the wilderness forever." Ju rushed to the bathroom and found herself almost paralyzed by the sight of blue water flooding the floor, which nearly made her dizzy on the spot. Yamra and Ning rush over, and in a flash of pure comical laughter, she reveals that the water at play isn't even drinkable. As Yammer tried to explain the mess while she stood right above the bowl, his fear turned so strong that Yammer himself plummeted downward toward the sink, joining her as they crashed onto the floor together. The sudden chaos of the disaster, followed by Yammer's wobbly, wet pajamas, made him feel completely helpless as he began to cry about his actions. But Ju brings fresh water and tells her husband that because life has arrived at this stage, he must look after him, so perhaps living side by side is the best way forward. A sudden shift in Yammer's demeanor caused her to instantly retreat into a small, defensive posture, clearly feeling a wave of embarrassment that made her eyes widen slightly. So, if she gets a raise, she'll get double the money? Yammer stares down the mirror, wondering if her reflection might actually be her own past self waiting for a new beginning in another world. And so he stood up, leaning forward to ask, "Why do you think you're coming down from the sky?" Judy has never heard the word descend, so she can't even imagine why God must go down into heaven. Yammer thinks the question is trivial and forces everyone to reply, yet nobody feels truly tired from his endless rambling because he keeps pulling up new ideas every single time. Hasn't he wondered if he simply mistook a familiar face for a stranger? She whispers that the woman inside her feels like she's been visited by something ancient and terrifying. The name whispers in his ear as he tries to stop the storm, needing someone to hear what he really needs right now. She couldn't help but think that the man staring at her might be a stranger named Kangrim, since she wasn't exactly like anyone else she knew. Did she really hear the sound of her own heart beat through that memory again? Yammer's whisper echoed like a secret promise, and then the quiet suddenly turned into a loud realization when Noming finally understood what he was really thinking. Yammer never blamed anyone, even though the person who gave her the job was actually Ju. She wasn't sure if the man would actually remember her last name, but she knew it mattered because he had been listening carefully to everything she said today. Even though Yamra looks grumpy most of the time, he is actually quite kind. When Yamra asks how Kongram knows she isn't Kongram, Noming says it's obvious. Kongram was 11 times better than this woman. She had a certain charm, right? As soon as Ju hears that, she flips the bottle upside down and delivers the punishment Naming deserves. Even though his screams were muffled by the wind, you could hear them clearly from outside. It was chilly at night when they finally fell asleep together as Yammer sat up on their blanket, and he knew it would be better to go home soon after. It feels like Naming makes the world feel much better because we never went into a place where things are hard. He hears someone saying that humans are thriving today, so he secretly envies their way of life. Julie woke up and asked herself how much of a human world she really enjoyed, but she already knew she loved it so much because her homemade meal tasted amazing too. Naming said that again. The couple tried desperately to recall who served the soup until they finally found out it was Mr. Kim's. Yamra didn't think eating Mr. Kim's delicious meal would be like that, but he knew it brought real happiness and sadness to his name. The two of them praised it, and then Ju's face twisted into a grim smile because what they ate wasn't even kimchi at all. It was raw meat. She didn't even try to fix the mess. They were just so exhausted from all this stuff that patience felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Yamra and Noming chat for a while, and suddenly both feel like they are in the exact same brain cell at once. From there, they burst into a brilliant new idea together. She stood up straight and tucked Ju inside because she had been working overtime, though Yamra only offered the suggestion that they should settle down for a rest. You got a lot more to do today than that one time when the King of Hell actually tucked you away for a nap. So stop trying to be gentle and get your job done. When the girl puts on her face mask, the two friends try to sneak into the kitchen, but Ju keeps telling them not to let anyone touch any meat. It looked like Yamra and Noming fell down the stairs at once, making her stand still because they had been about to do something very dangerous. Their lack of control feels like a wild and terrifying storm that nobody can hold back from falling into. The girl froze in her chair, her eyes locked on the high ceiling as she stared blankly at what had just transpired. She met Yamra and immediately fell into hell a second time. She found the dead by using Park's magic and saved herself later by healing from her wounds as she slipped down into the shadows. This makes her wonder what Yamra thought of if a soul stepped into hell. But nobody tells us that even death can make people better at what they do. Does it feel like her eyes might finally see a ghost again when they keep chasing the person who never came back? Eimer stood up and asked a question that made her heart skip a beat. Why do you want to see more dead people? Okay, so she walks over and says, I want to go home with my dad. The girl couldn't shield herself from the pain while she still felt deeply sad for what happened. Naming immediately said, oh no, because she knew for certain she was human. Humans aren't magic. We don't know how far our bodies will stretch before getting tired or hurting. But sometimes, when the world gets too hard to handle, they'll just make a move so big it's impossible to stop. He felt like the ground was collapsing under his feet as he tried to say goodbye to Yammer. His body gave out right before anyone could hear him vanish completely. Julia tells Ming she needs to stay still because Ju just woke up and said to do nothing else. Jinu knows they won't be able to help him right away because something inside him is escaping his skin and making her feel dangerously frightened. She remembered the old story, saying she'd never wanted to let go of any other person. Well, it seems the woman with her generous spirit and warm heart somehow manages to find a way to make the man happy with his own words. If she can help a lot, then Tilbo will let her see his own parents instead. Chabu was completely stunned when he heard those words and immediately asked himself if he had truly promised to do this. The video calls confirm that she is already here. If she refuses to leave, she won't come back and she could end up in hell. She couldn't even look at him when he floated away and celebrated with a floating soul. Yum was feeling a little more cheerful when she saw him smiling like that. That said, he had to find Tulbo right away to make sure he kept his promise. In a quiet corner of the world, a towering shadow suddenly lunges at the person who spoke last, forcing them to say exactly what they were about to forget forever. But the one speaking is Yuchi, who bows and declares with a sudden shout that he has fully vanished into nothingness. His soul felt like a shattered piece of glass. He found out about a new skill that steals your spirit, and it turns out to be called soul bots. There's only one person in your life who truly knows how to use this skill, so you know for sure without any doubts left behind. You know, Yammer sounds like a big guy who finally decided to come back from the dead to see what everyone else is doing. The tall, powerful voice from Tilbo suddenly drops when he hears the words Uchi, making everyone else pause before he can even finish speaking. Uchi suggested sending some dead ones down so he could stop the villain Yamra, but he was already thrown into a mess before he even started talking. Tilbo laughed aloud, seeing how pathetic it was to treat the king of the underworld with such contempt. He pulls out a figure called Gonwu and shouts, "Take all the dead who need saving while we hurry." Yammer can't win yet because he's too weak to fight alone. The 12 Zodiacs are coming in a row and trying to knock him down until they finally get strong enough to hurt him again. Daimu, the mighty sword master, tells everyone that he's going to finish his job right here. The next morning, Ju answered the phone and heard Baiku apologize for calling early, only to learn how Yamra had been doing today. Ju checks the fence, and his heart stops when he sees a tiny white dog barking wildly in the yard, because that sound tells people it's time to stop talking about ghosts. Baiku almost went deaf hearing the Ju scream, and was still okay. Ju sighs and tries to apologize while gently asking what she actually wanted. It was a big day at work where Baiku had to tell Yamra they needed to push harder, so she decided she'd stay home to help out instead. And that's why we need to fix her up before she does another single thing for Yamra. That was the reason they jumped into a bustling shopping mall to find stylish outfits for Yamra. Baiku didn't even look surprised when she saw the clothes because they were so comfy that it was hard to believe a stranger would wear such comfort in a strange world. Ju had been heading straight for a big department store, and Yammer just confirmed the very spot where he was supposed to go. Ju couldn't help but notice how Baiku had already handed her that book, meaning she just found out something was missing from the inside of the envelope. She knew she'd have to get this money before she went to bed. The social media giants are urging people to save energy because recycling is the only way to save the planet. Ju didn't wait for a good reply before opening her eyes. Instead, she kept asking herself which type of paper the King of Hell was actually using. Yamra gently explained that this isn't a special storybook. She was simply reading about human deaths in a regular book. Ju suddenly realizes what this is, the Sang Sabu, the very book that keeps the lives and people hidden, and she rushes to confront him, shouting how he could so casually take a page out of sacred paper without noticing. Meanwhile, Yammer puffs up with the idea that maybe she just slipped it in her pocket or something. Does Ju dare let her mind slip into a dark hole like that before the crowd gathered around? What do they say when everyone sees her go mad right now? The app says stop trying, because humans are dumb enough not to read that text at all. Yet, if you check out the rules here, you have to chase down a beast in that big spot first before getting any celebrity attention. Ju's about to jump for joy when he stops and lets the idiot know exactly what he means before he can even hit him. Yamura did what she said and told her about the Zodiacs who had arrived in this world, insisting they must look for work so they could live and that this specific one was specially hired for it. Baiku explained to him that he didn't understand the meaning yet, but he learned quickly. Ju asks which zodiac sign it is, but Yammer instantly confirms it's a pig. So the zodiac sign got a hard time again. He was almost done vomiting last month. A sudden phone call comes in from her boss, asking if she's actually so dumb. Sean was adamant about never eating during the session, yet she found herself continuing to do so all along. Don't worry if she doesn't see it yet. She is already moving in the right direction toward fixing her personal story. Da decided to throw away all her food in the sink because she didn't care about what she swallowed. She carries a heavy burden of sadness while her boss congratulates her on having done something perfect, and in that very moment, she understands exactly why it was all right to be there. She knew she could never stop doing this. Now, the boss cuts off the line, and she screams that Adia just did it another time. The woman couldn't hold back her laughter, nearly acting like a pig, while a delivery man asked if he should take his order with him. The manager instantly felt a shift in tone, realizing the man belonged to CH, and ordered him to put his clothes back on the table. The boy walks away from the table after finishing his homework, but he stops to see how she's acting and wonders if there's something else he needs to do instead of saying. The man who looks like he's about to shoot a cannon actually asked when it was supposed to happen, yet his boss is completely uninterested in starting anything. What if the world turns upside down and everyone gets stuck on the streets instead of getting a chance to fix things right? She needs to step in and make sure he speaks clearly at least once. The cannon shouts that the guy won't starve, so the rest of his pocket money can still be spent on a big meal, but when he looks down at them, he knows the hunger is real before it gets too late. Da stares hard at the empty table as the cannon freezes with a look of shock when he hears she finally eat it back. The character finally admits her mistake, yet the story simply tells us that no matter how many times she tries to apologize, the rules are clear. She can only break the rule once, and then has to sit there waiting until everyone leaves before she does it again. Daga gathers her strength and asks for one bite, but then immediately refuses to take the treat. The crew lets her finish shooting before they even know she's a pig. Yet that same night, the manager stares at the screen, realizing exactly how many times she's been told to look thin just so they can make it all work. She loves that one extra meal every single day. It's so much better than her share, and the family still lets herself eat anyway. Dad told her she'd been feeling dizzy ever since she started acting, which means she was almost fainting every single day, so everyone else at the party even had a quick lunch break because they were all in it. The cannon does its best to imitate a monkey and asks, "Are you telling me that they're coming?" It wasn't entirely true when she refused, yet the cannon did grab her hand and made her feel so much worse for being stuck like that. Did you ever hear that when you were little and you first met a friend? She looked down at the boy on the street, standing stiffly as if she were begging someone to help. He gave her clothes, a roof over her head, and food, letting her live as a normal human being just by him. Da apologized, knowing she hadn't meant to say something like that, while the cannon watches as everyone makes their own mistakes. Yes, it's totally normal that families get into fights over silly things. Da's surprised eyes widen as the words fly out of their mouths, causing everyone else to rush toward the door instead of laughing along with them. Once the magic wandler leaves, anyone calling her an idiot will see a trick on her face. She thinks any special phrase makes her perfect unless someone says it first. Da suddenly spun around and began hopping over the rough floorboards in her terrible sneakers, laughing because she finally knew who she was to anyone else. In that split second, the room feels suddenly alive as a tall voice starts to rise from behind the scene. You would be so sorry if an insignificant human treats your zodiac sign like that. It really is a disaster. Angry face, she feels heavy and trapped in the dark, but he will finally let go of that endless pain for her. She will bring all her belongings with Tilbo right away as he's summoned. Da asked what he had just said, and Ivan quickly dismissed it away. Tilbo stood up and shouted, "I'm leaving. I have to go. You know exactly where she is heading now. Why aren't Tobo checking in with them?" She knows they're all dead, so she can't give this message to her directly. It wasn't just a question Ivan asked. He was already dead and didn't even bother trying to hide the fact at all. She can't leave because now she's not an individual anymore. Instead, she has been swallowed by her entire family circle. She can't let go of the connection. Ivan stumbles back in shock because she claims to speak to those people exactly like they should, but the silence in that room feels louder than any words. It was hard to believe that even after someone left behind, the people still treated everyone like a family member. She laughed so hard, Ivan started to feel a little angry, and suddenly he remembered that she had said something really foolish all along. She grabs him with a grip that feels like iron, but he tries to calm her down by asking how much she actually cares about what happened. Don't let that skinny body take the spotlight. Instead, focus your eyes on her favorite person. This girl was being treated like an idiot all along, which made her feel like a naughty zodiac sign who should have finally woken up in the morning. She'll never be alone because they're the only one who can protect her forever. Still, Daha cannot let go of her heart. As the gunner and the boss finally settle down after a long meal, they start talking about all sorts of stuff on the way home. You can see the screen flicker as Ju steps forward to ask the big cannon if it's the lion, the CEO of Schwein Entertainment. He takes a deep breath and says, "I'm the cannon." Ju looks puzzled as his partner, Yammer, suddenly jumps out of the way because she thinks the guy is a pig, causing a loud shudder in the room. Suddenly Jewel stands up and turns his back on Yaman because he knows this is a rude move, yet Yaman remains completely confused. "You're asking me what?" A magnificent-faced giant with a terrifyingly slim waist and a completely bald head stands as the ultimate pig, his most beautiful expression captured in a single moment on the page. It was Jummu who told him the bull was being bullied by a cow. And when a kid named Jummu suddenly called him a pig, the bull got mad and demanded to know why someone so rude could be calling him such a name. The manager tried hard to hold back his voice and say he was just praising how handsome the man looked. Even when they are about to kill each other, the cannon still aims after him. She told the guy to hold back because she wouldn't let him be locked up again. Do they need some time to get back together? Because she kept spilling talk all day, he finally had to think straight and find a real place where his anger should go. Da waits in the hallway, biting her nails hard as she leans on a table filled with tempting-looking treats, dreaming that tomorrow's meal will finally be ready to share. As soon as they arrived, she jumped up sharply because she suddenly needed to tell him something important, but then she noticed the manager's injured face and asked right away what had happened. She burst through the door and saw the cannon say, "You deserve it." He wondered if he had actually knocked her down, yet he noticed she acted so perfectly as if she were doing this every single day. Dee feels so anxious when she sees her boss staring at her, making her hesitate on what to say next. The tall man looks down at the table with a curious grin, his clear gaze ready to catch every last detail of the meal before he even asks what she's eating. The boy roars at the food bowl, which he thinks will be his meal until a voice calls out, "All you want is to eat." De felt hurt by Da's words, so he ran straight toward him to beg him to run away, even though it had been the most dangerous test anyone ever faced in their lives. She knew she couldn't make her point very clearly, so he must believe in her wholeheartedly. It's a wild story where she even calls him dad, and that simple word causes the cannon to shoot straight down into the dirt. A stubborn pig who refuses to call himself father thinks the title belongs only to someone else. Ivan burst through the door, panting heavily and beaming with the news that he finally gets his own reasons for kicking everyone out. He's a wild man whose heart doesn't care where he goes, screaming at anyone from a fight to a whisper until it hurts the whole world. He even has a tongue that deserves to be sliced out and tossed among the dogs. Yet he was already saying to Dada that no one else can become his family. He grabbed a fat head and shouted, "What do I think would happen if I continued this?" Evan didn't even make it to the door, but all hell was already going his way as he knew how to ruin it. Daha laughs and says, "I'll shoot you right now, and I'll let go of all your earthly cravings." And he decided to go on a date with the girl, but as soon as he looked in the mirror to see if he was ready, he found that she had already been taken by someone else. At the same time, Yammer held down the dam of ideas and said, "We don't even need to ask." Evan starts by asking what the victims were up to, but Yammer takes a deep breath and immediately yells, "Ju, run," while wondering if that person who is now being held for ransom would make it any easier. Yammer blinked furiously as she saw the pile of junk sitting right in front of her, which made her decide to throw it away instead of looking for anything more valuable. Yammer told me to order them to drop the sinners, yet I was told by him that he didn't want to do so at all. It's Ivan who tells the truth. He won't let them take over. They'll arrive right now. The messenger didn't know what to say when a stranger named Ivan told him the truth about the trouble with the people, so he just asked why he should do it after all. Ivan has been sitting down, and now he's ready to charge him up. Yammer worries he won't be able to handle the situation if Ivan keeps acting all angry and frantic. Yet despite that constant need to change direction, he always searches for an escape route, even when things are getting worse. Why does he keep clutching that extra fat belly in his hands while talking to the kids? No one can stop him when he hides away, because even if he fights back, innocent folks are still pulled into his trap. Ivan lunges at Dahi, yet an invisible hand keeps him from moving, leaving him unsure of where to go next. He must find a perfect way to strike that blocks out all the noise and keeps everyone safe. Ivan has decided to run forever, so he can never let Ivan have any other option. She's going to hit him hard as he tries to avoid the concrete slab right in front of her little girl. Ju has a faster way out than Eimer, so she won't be caught by him before he gets near her. She catches the slab, and throws her own momentum away as she crashes into the wall next door. She stares at the clock that says 9:30, then sees her family arrive with packages and phones in her hands. The news started with a sudden explosion of sirens, and suddenly the world turned gray when it was discovered that everyone is in danger because everything is missing, so people just have to run out now. The mother finally understood exactly what was going on and gently told her daughter not to cry while she calmly evacuated the room. Yammer knows Ivan was frustrated because the funeral made him unable to reach his goal, so she wonders if he saw her before. If he dared to run, he'd probably kill all the humans for sure, and right now, he's locked in with the zodiac signs, so they have to hand her over immediately. He was relieved to find that a thought had finally started making him jump out of his chair and sit up straighter. Yammer almost knocked Ivan down by jumping straight into the air, throwing a punch that was totally impossible for him to dodge and miss in his very quick motion. Yammer and Ivan share a quiet moment of fear. They both know their game is over because it's time to stop running. He pulls a dark force from the shadows that threatens to swallow them whole, slamming Evan down hard while Yamra instantly stops him with a fierce block of energy. Naming, the name of the day, also appeared and recognized that stubborn bastard. Did you hear the call about the guy named Evan who can't talk to anyone? He was a man who fought like lightning himself. When his father left his first wife because she couldn't have kids, he immediately married a stranger and waited for a baby named Ivan to come along. The ancient bishop felt nothing but annoyance at the poor behavior of those around him. He then turned to his own family and cursed them for their disgraceful actions. He knew his son was born with a twisted heart, and he knew his nation was already covered in the stains of what he had done to save it. The world collapsed because that terrible child wanted everything and nothing at once. Ivan keeps trying to hit Yammer, but he only gets a quick dodge while she calls out to her sister about her crazy. Naming confirmed that Ivan had indeed beaten his own pregnant daughter-in-law right down to the bone. Ivan had missed the other blow, but didn't think about it. Instead, he told himself that someone else had already died. The prince cursed the boy until his spirit finally cracked open, leaving him with terrifyingly calm madness. Yelmer is furious as he watches a grieving man stand before his murderers because the sins they committed will never be forgiven. Naming tried to whisper a secret, and Imer cut him off, shouting that he'd forgotten everything. They must start by hurting everyone they meet before anyone else even gets a chance. Ivan throws a mighty punch at Noming just as she's about to begin her speech, and she immediately gets angry because she knows he could have been attacked during it. Yammer reached out to see if Yammer was okay, but the man held on tight while Yammer told him he wanted to borrow his mantle just so he could handle this bad guy better next time. No one handed Yaman's mantle back. Instead, he began shaking it every inch as if the thing itself had grown restless since the last loan. Yammer laughed and said, "I don't think I need that smell anymore. I'm just going to let it expire in a minute." Noon noticed he was always forgetting things, yet his famous hat had an unexpected side effect on everyone around him. Ivan gets angry when he has to speak about what it means for a fight to happen, so he turns on his side and makes Nothing yell back at him, demanding to know why he's doing this while he is still speaking. Ivan keeps his eyes tight and shouts, "Don't let your guard down. You got a big lie right there." Yamra is quick to save everyone from embarrassment and tackles Ivan right as he's about to shout something back, then gets tackled by Yamra, who shoves him into the water. The man at the counter stares at Ivan's glowing energy bars and suddenly thinks he might not be real all along. He has no other way but to pull every ounce of strength out of himself as a last resort. Yamra isn't moving at all when he tries to summon more power. Instead, he stares blankly as his two hands begin to tremble and lose their grip, leaving him completely confused about why his magic is failing so suddenly. Anyone could think he was about to unleash a huge army of invaders, but the madman never actually moved a single step forward at all. It was that moment when he finally understood, and suddenly Yamra punched him in the face as if he were an animal trying to run away. He knows that Namon also feels the pain because Yamra keeps striking him whenever he speaks. How did your boss actually turn out so mean? Ivan has become so furious, he's even more afraid of playing tricks on him right now. Yamra teleported right beside him and whispered, "You're going to get hurt," while the flames danced around their ankles before they vanished into thin air. He hits Ivan hard enough to knock him off guard, even if the blow isn't so strong that he goes limp right away. Yammer thought the story was only a scene where he fought Yuchi. There's nothing in his life that could even start a fight with them. You need a good thing to do, or maybe even just get something right now to make things better. Ivan swung his weapon back and hit Ivan once more, only for Ivan to finally understand exactly who was behind the fight. You have to be the king of the underworld, because you're the only one who can truly rule that place. Yamra laughs and yells at the sky, sending lightning straight toward her while she screams. And Noming was really shocked when he saw his tunic wasn't powered up by magic, but instead charged full with thunder. Ivan grabs Yammer's torso, while shouting his opinion about where exactly he wants him to go. Every single part of him feels like a flame on fire. Even when a man faces life or death, strikes from lightning. The hard truth is that such an impact can never be truly endured. Yammer rolled his eyes as the storm clouds turned into bright bolts of lightning. Yet he couldn't help but chuckle at Ivan's amused look, since it actually made the whole thing so much smoother to work. Ivan is stunned that his body still feels perfectly fine after the storm. Yet Noming tells him it's a pity he had to confront Yammer first, because lightning never works on Ivan. He might actually be the weakest version of himself right now, but he'll do whatever comes next without failing. Ivan's patience finally broke, so he unleashed another strike for every single one of his hits. Yammer laughed like a man who just finished running a marathon and now stands still on the edge of a cliff. Ivan needs a reason for his own change, and Yammer says the lightning made him do that instead. He endured a terrible job for the life of his past boss, because he had been beaten up enough times that he could take it as normal now. He really might not grasp the message with words, so he's going to use his eyes instead. He tried to summon powerful lightning from the Jade Emperor to hurt Yammer, but it failed completely, leading Yammer to call him a senile old man and causing a torrential shower of magical bolts to fall all over him instead. At the bustling mall, Ju takes a moment to tidy up before heading over to Baiku and says, "Everything looks ready." Baiku thanked her with a big smile because they were so fast. Tu said it was nothing, but then you realized how lucky you were when she came in right on time instead of waiting for you. The brave people who worked hard let all the ordinary civilians escape without a scratch. Baiku asked if Yamura was still in the fight with the dead guy, but Ju said yes. Both friends headed down the dark road so they could finally talk to each other. Baiku can't wait to see what happens next, even though she wonders where her friend went when they left. Ju nods with an enthusiastic grin while Baiku cringes, thinking about how many times she's met him before and why he'd still refuse to take on the job, though she doesn't know what else to do next. She clearly has a family to support. Ju stares down the thought in her mind as it echoes the horrific deed of cannibals, causing her face to darken into something far darker than fear, before she shouts that Da's lineage is nothing more than a shadow cast on the world. The girl thinks the terrible people in her life are her family, so she hopes no bad guy can slip out while Yamura stays right behind him to keep things safe. The battle between Yamura and An still raged fiercely, but even as the clash intensified, Cannonball stayed paralyzed by a sudden wave of shock. He couldn't help but stare at every tear that broke from their faces, feeling utterly powerless against this terrifying assault. He ended up being quite lucky because the dead bastard guy finally gave up and threw him away. He wouldn't have made it past the explosion because his friends had already run into that vehicle. Then he called out, and it got absolutely total shock and couldn't even move a muscle anymore. She grabbed the man right then and demanded he explain exactly what happened with him, so he could hear every detail from her side. He felt so angry after hearing Da call him his own father, because that sound made the kid even more hurt. He laughed at the idea of being a pig's son, realizing that pretending to be part of their own family was just as pointless as trying to hide from a lion. He hated her so much that half the time he couldn't even quite follow what she was saying all along. Did she choose to follow her own path or let the director's vision hold her hand? She slammed the door shut, snapping those arrogant bastards behind them away before they could make a move, and then she looked at his face with anger-filled eyes, reminding him that every step she took toward getting rid of this trouble was all her fault. Dihei cried hard as he kept calling him father, yet he knew the truth. Cannonball had told her to let go of that old title entirely. She had never been his daughter at all, never for a second. It was a sudden, thunderous blow that knocked the Jade Emperor completely off his feet in a flash of lightning. And since Yamura had finally settled down with that sinner, he pivoted his gaze toward Cannonball, pointing out that he didn't fully grasp the logic behind what was happening. Why does she have to endure everything right now? The Cannonball leaps over her shoulder, ready to snap her neck every time he gets closer. The pig is having a very strange conversation with Yamura, as if she were his friend, yet he justifies it by saying they're actually talking to each other. Why does she feel so angry when a fat guy treats her like an ungrateful little girl in the middle of the street? He stood still, refusing to look at the stranger while someone else spoke about how long they hadn't seen each other before. Yamura started wondering what had been going on throughout the entire day. She needs a hug so much that she wants all the help right now. Cannibal watches silently as the girl tells him nothing at all, hoping that her silence will somehow help him find a way to be safe again. He's telling Yamura she wants to talk about the old bag of trash, saying if she gives him a chance to walk out, I'll let her take it all. She's doing whatever he orders, which means she'd go with him without even trying to stop. Yamura knows she's the only one left with all her options to make peace with him, so why wait for anyone else to say yes? Suddenly, Ivan jumps up as if to show off and says, "I've never been so arrogant," then spit a piece of food straight into his own open mouth without checking where it lands before he gets angry again. So nobody could stop him from doing what a mere human wants, shutting that dirty mouth about that Zodiac being his own alone. Cannonball laughed and shouted, "That girl is my own damn property." He didn't care who it was. Vigilant Ivan called the guy a fool who assumed nothing would happen until they were right there in their own place. The two yell louder and louder, and Dahal's trembling cries become more desperate as he can't find any words left to scream for. Ning stops the noise while standing between the two men and asks Ivan, "Did you just say, Tobo?" He warned him not to call the guy by his real name so casually. If he does, he might get really fired up and punished for it. Naming's aura begins to swell as he demands to know if Tobo really sent him, and Ivan immediately knows that wasn't the kind of person he'd ever have any respect for. Eimer pauses his breath to show Ivan exactly what he's about to do, reminding him that no matter how much power lies within the flames, they can never reach the goal if you forget what truly matters on a mission. He knew he had to step in and take care of the victim right now, even though it felt like he was making a big mistake by rushing things so quickly. Cannonball hesitated as the giant Yammer watched him, nudging his hand toward the door so he could finally talk to Dahala. Yammer grabs Cannonball right as he makes it to the finish line before Yammer even finishes speaking, then rips off his tongue with a shout for all the world to hear how far he ran. He hangs upside down and uses his rotting guts to decorate the halls of hell. Cannonball laughs as he hears the news, and Yamra immediately throws him aside. He steps closer to Daha and asks why she wants her own little family. She explained how absolutely nothing happens in hell that makes people feel as though they're okay with their current state. Yet she felt so jealous when humans enjoyed such a blessed reality after all. She wondered how many happier people actually have families, but then she realized suddenly it was such a silly idea. You'd never think she ever considered that anyone a family member, no matter the circumstances. Yammer softly called out in wonder and asked, "Do you want to be my child?" Da whispers, "Am I right?" while Yammer nods solemnly, confirming the truth with a steady look. Imagine if two people hug like this and finally meet up again. They might be one real family now. Does that sound far more wonderful than what she's currently like? Dasu was crying even harder after hearing that news, and she asked herself if it really meant everything was all right. She sees him stand up and reach out to say, "Yeah, I can't take any more risks," and he immediately wraps an arm around her neck to keep the deal sealed for good. She hugs him afterward, feeling deeply thankful that he did such a good job. Yamra puts her arms around the girl she loves, saying, "From this day forward, we depend on one another." From the very first moment, darkness seemed to fade, and suddenly, the air in the room turned electrically hot, and the very world around them began to shift into flames. Name never imagined her heart would finally open up so completely. The fate she was born with in her mind has suddenly turned into an unbreakable friendship between herself and Yamra. Cannonball rushes down to Ivan's knee and whispers, "You have to demand Daha." Naming says he's going to snap before the whole thing's done, so Ivan keeps his hands up instead of letting Evan take over the scene. As the black flames around Daha explode even hotter, Ivan slowly slams on the keys to remember exactly what Silas taught him about the Zodiacs, just as the legendary warrior Yammer finally awakens and takes control of his magic again. He's been trying hard for days and finally got stuck in a loop where the only thing left is to repeat the exact same mistake over and over again until you completely lose your mind about what was supposed to happen. Once the bond between them solidified, Dahai stepped out in his gorgeous red outfit and immediately became the king's quiet, obedient servant. Even knowing exactly what Tilbo feared about Yammer's power could be felt now that it had finally risen to the surface. In a moment of sheer desperation, he thinks his only hope is to do something and pulls every ounce of strength out of one last, powerful strike. Believing they will both perish here, he charges with incredible speed, but Namin calls him a fool who doesn't understand what it truly means to become a subordinate. The gods have locked Dai and Yammer in the bind, and now he hands her the most powerful piece of his power. In exchange for what Yammer takes away from its owner, the character grabs a magical shield that turns their sorrow into ash forever. It feels like a deep, dangerous secret that only Chinya has because she can eat everything she touches. Ivan finally knows exactly who he has fought throughout these years. She knew exactly who the real Yamra was before anyone else could guess him. You finally understand why Tulware is not being disrespectful anymore. The darkness now seems to swallow him whole, and he wonders how long he'll be stuck forever in that terrible place before the sun comes out again. After Ivan's power finally hits his limits, Yammer spits out a curse that summons Noming right there to bow down in protest. Naming heard that the guy he ate last night was actually a subordinate from Tillo's side, and he chuckled at the absurdity. He's about to shatter his way into the deep dark as he casts him into hell. While he was still playing the game, he had to pull out all the cards and find every clue about this guy named Tilbo before anyone else could start their own plan. Ning was the kind of man who knew exactly when things were done and how much he loved playing with them. Yammer steps forward and pouts, realizing that he has finally been let in on the stage of judgment himself. You're supposed to act like a nice little sitter so everyone can rest quietly while the world goes on. Oh God. He grabbed his head in panic and started screaming desperately, begging to talk to Dama right now. He's waiting for a moment alone with her, just one more time. A loud boom sends a woman flying into the air as she screams for help. Then, standing right on her own feet before her, Yammer suddenly smiles and starts to apologize sincerely. He was so cruel to her that he knew she was about to suffer forever. If things continued like this, nothing good could ever fix it. She was crying because she had to stop screaming and beg him to let her live, even though she knew he would never hurt her or curse her. Yamra asked what she wanted to do, but Doma decided to let go entirely because no matter how bad his treatment had been, he was still there for her. Cannonball asked, "Wouldn't you actually be so nice to help me get this done?" He nodded solemnly, confirming her words as the rain tapped against the window pane. A cannonball lands on Yamra's toes, whispering from the air, "Since you've forgiven him, we can finally say goodbye." Yamra, staring at the obese man, left a heavy silence, making sure he knew exactly where things were going next. He grabbed his friend right then and there and said, "I don't really get it." Even though the man got his heart back, he still feels a little sad after all this time. The angry voice of an online victim told us, "He did this wrong and hurt me, but if I let go now, his pain won't get any worse. He won't forget the terrible things he did for the victim's sake." The truth was that if true mercy wiped away all crimes, then kindness might mean letting someone rule over anyone else who doesn't care about their own mistakes. No matter how hard the pain gets or what kind of monster they are, he refuses to let anything unspilled. And he slams him down onto the floor, shouting that the bad guy won't ever let a mistake slip off his record. The judge stands firm because his sword has already cut through the enemy's heart long enough to wear it off by now. With no hands at all and no feet to touch ground, he walks directly up that wall of thorny roots. He laughed as he ripped his stomach open and tossed the bloody mess onto the floor like a pile of gold coins before the rest of the day was up. Yamra vanishes quickly in 3 minutes, then suddenly reappears on the street to see if his friend Ju had made it there and how far he actually got. The woman looked down at the floor with a tired face and announced that everything was finally settled. He grunts at the sound and wonders how much more time he has before running out of energy again. Ju handed Ju a fish-shaped pastry he had bought earlier, and she asked, "Is that delicious?" Yamra wandered through the bustling mall in search of something special, only to find herself staring at a small shop just a few blocks away that seemed too inviting to ignore. Thanks to Piku's generous allowance, she had managed to secure the gift and have it delivered for him right as they headed home. Yamra watched her hop down the sidewalk and cheerfully announced that he had worked hard today, which meant it was time to wrap everything up and get back home. Eimer pauses his work and turns toward the street, finding joy in the simple rhythm of everyday life as he walks home. At Baiku's desk, her secretary told them the FBI found dead stuff everywhere all over the place. But Baiku knows exactly which spots are where the 12 Zodiacs hide. Yes, she truly seems interested too in hearing what Jules said about that suspicious event at the mall. The assistant is hesitant because he hasn't checked all details, though it turns out that the dead man holds a key spot in the hierarchy, specifically being under Tilbo's control, while Tilbo is busy trying to recruit 12 different Zodiac signs into his circle of influence. He's been staring down those subordinates for weeks because they're supposed to follow him straight, but nobody seems to be listening anymore. He's pushing the wall hard with his whole body.